Harry, welcome to All About Property.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about some of the basic principles that a landlord needs to consider. I think the big thing is probably the price that you ask for your rent. What are some of the big mistakes that a landlord can make when it comes to determining the rental amount?
They go onto the property portals and they go and have a look at what does people advertise certain specs on property. So for instance, a 2-bedroom place. But the key here is advertising and placing comes at 2 different prices. So usually if you look at the internet, what people are advertising for is not necessarily to say that's the price that it will rent for eventually. So they make that mistake and then they have their property standing open for a month. So I call it penny wise and pound foolish. Having it stand open for a month, you could have just as well decreased the price to secure a tenant than having it for that month, not receiving the rental for that month specifically.
Now there are obviously also a lot of risk factors with tenants. What are some of these?
Risk factor, definitely that you find the right type of tenant or the right tenant for your property. And what is the right tenant? Somebody that pays you on time, somebody that looks after your property, and somebody that you can have a relationship going forward. So a rental can just as easily go wrong, but you're looking for that right type of person that you will get your rental from every month.
I've attended a lot of property seminars where the experts say if you want to grow your rental portfolio, you can't also manage your own rentals. It's the thing of working on your investment, not in your investment. Why is that?
It's always preferable that you put somebody in the middle of you and the tenant. As soon as you become the contact person and the go-to guy for the tenant, you're the one on whose feelings they're going to play if they can't pay. If there's something to be done at the property, they're going to mail you the whole time, phone you the whole time. So having an agent is just putting that buffer in between and having the agent contact you and the agent dealing with the tenant going further. Yeah.
Now, Harry, you are a rental agent. Let's talk about some of the services that you offer landlords. Let's go through each one. The first one being advertising and showing the unit. Talk to me about that.
Advertising in our business is big business and it's expensive business. So having a footprint in the area where the investment property is located, for instance here where we are today is Moreleta Park, having a Leapfrog footprint on outside marketing, things like dustbins, bus shelters, and your show boards that go out every weekend, also your number of agents that show, just having a presence in the area. So that's part of advertising. The second biggest one is your property portals. And having a presence on your property portals, you can easily disappear amongst all the other competition that's on there. Yeah. And unfortunately that costs money. It costs money to land up on the first page. It costs money to have your listing branded with your brand and put the agent face there. So advertising as such is a big thing to reach a bigger audience when you're advertising your property that's for rent.
Tenants who do not pay their rent on time would generally target landlords who advertise privately, because the chances of that landlord conducting credit and reference checks on them are very slim.
Minimizing risk is all about finding the right tenant, making sure that they're good on paper, and checking out references and credit check to make sure that they are who they say they are. So when you draw in an ITC inquiry on them, it's very easy to see. Is the finances in order? Does the money come in? Can you see where he's paying his rent every month on a bank statement, for instance? That will give you a very good indication of what time of the month he pays. So covering your risks on paper and doing a reference check on him from his previous rental company.
Generic lease agreements that are downloaded from the internet may not always be updated with rental laws that protect both tenant and landlord in the event of a dispute. It is thus advisable to have a lease agreement in place through a rental agent.
If I have a mandate from a buy-to-let investor saying, Harry, I trust you to rent out my property, you make the decisions. They don't want to sign my lease, they can go and find another property. It's as easy as that, because the lease is one-sided, yes. But if it was your property, you would have wanted it to be so, because the property is the place that can get the damage and you cannot be paid for it and things like that.
A security deposit is required to rectify any damages to the property upon the termination of a tenant's lease. Should no restoration be required, the full deposit and any accrued interest must be paid to the tenant within 7 days of the expiration of the lease.
How do you deal with a tenant that's not paying?
You know, everybody has problems sometimes, and sometimes you're not in Afrikaans would say, gewoonte misdadiger. So sometimes it's really just a case where something has gone wrong for the month. And then I must facilitate those discussions between the tenant and the owner needs to be informed that, listen, there's a problem here, but we're working on it. Can we give him until X date? So it's quite a substantial job to really know who's still owing you and who's the guys that usually do it and who's somebody that's just paying late. So things that play a role here is also when does the first fall on? Does it fall on a Saturday or a Sunday? Then it's interbank transfers that take 2 days if you do them from a different bank. So you have to have the knowledge of all of these things to make sure, because you don't want to upset the relationship as well, because they're still in the property. But it's very difficult to deal with people not paying. I usually drive out to the property if I really can't get hold. So for me, if you're communicating to me, it tells me that we still have the relationship. If my office or me can't get hold of you, I need to make a plan because I need to give feedback to the landlord. So you'll find me sometimes on month end running around, going to property, seeing what I can see there because we can't get hold of a tenant. So it's just being on their cases immediately and not letting it slide for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They need to know that you're on them because they haven't paid on time.
Now, you are a rental agent in Moreleta Park in Pretoria East. What are some of the buy-to-let offerings for investors here in Moreleta Park?
Moreleta Park has got a range of accommodation for the guy that's just starting out, for the family that's gotten too big for the 2-bedroom and needs a 3-bedroom, and for the people who's tired of living in a complex and wants to go to their own little house with their own gate and their own things and not having those rules that you are bound by. So I would say a good stepping up market in terms of you can start here and you can end here.
Why should buy-to-let investors and landlords deal with you?
Leapfrog basically in Moreleta Park can give you a one-stop experience. So in other words, you buy the property from us, I rent it out for you. Whenever you've had enough and you want to opt your cash and get out, we can sell it again for you. And the advantage in that is that we have the relationship with the tenant then. So, you know, as soon as you put in other agents to take people through when it's not a tenant placed by them, there's immediately, some issues of getting access to the property and things like that. So having one reputable agent doing all two for you, all three for you, for that matter, is the way to go.
Lovely chatting to you.
Thank you.